I'm going to start this video off by admitting two things that you probably already know about me. I'm a 26-year-old Nintendo shill, and I've been playing Pokemon games every year of my life casually since I was 5 years old. And even with these two characteristics, even I can admit that modern Pokemon is uglier than the photos I take of my hairline to make sure it's not receding. Which is why for so many of us, what still fuels our love for Pokemon to this day isn't the modern releases, but the fan-made games. And what these projects have confirmed to me is that Pokemon can only reach its true peak in 2D. Now, I don't think it's a good idea for Game Freak to just start making GBA games again, even though I know a lot of us would probably buy into that for sure. But what I do think is a good idea is for Game Freak to go back and expand upon a style that they had carefully perfected over the past couple of years, if not decades of hard work. And I'm talking about Gen 5, baby. We had these super personality packed sprites with animations and a mix of 3D graphics in with the 2D sprites in the overworld. It was just such a wonderful time for the art style of Pokemon. And then all of a sudden Pokemon was just like, you know what? Yeah, we're done. We haven't had a 2D Pokemon game since 2012, and today I'm going to show you that this is a tragedy, because there is an art style that would let Game Freak take advantage of their beautiful past work with all of these sprites and 2D animations with modern quality of life updates, lighting, and features. And I'm talking about HD2D. Now, before we get into the HD part of everything, I just want to focus solely on the 2D aspect here. On the surface, I can see why some people would think that I'm just being nostalgic and, I want to go back to the good old days, but these individuals are clearly misunderstanding the science behind a 2D sprite. When you move to 3D, it's just a dangerous, slippery slope, and if you don't have 5 years of development time or a massive budget, which Game Freak apparently never have, you just end up with things that look like this. But sprites are an abstraction, brother. They don't try to show you every single blade of grass or the acne on a Pokemon trainer's face. Instead of giving you everything, they just give your brain the blueprint. When it comes to 2D sprites, there is an imagination gap. The game gives you the soul and the essence of the character or the Pokemon, and then it's up to you and your brain to fill in the rest of the details. It's almost like a collaborative experience between the art that you're looking at and then your very own brain, because you have to fill in the details that it's not showing you. And it's not like these lacked detail either. If anything, a lot of the 2D sprites showed way more personality than any 3D model ever did. Probably the most referenced one is Typhlosion, because he looks sick in 2D, but then in 3D, he just got neutered. Electros in 2D looks sick. I love the design. Add him to my team. Electros in 3D, I'm probably gonna uninstall the game. They absolutely murdered my boy Meowth. In 2D, he looked amazing and had an actual personality, but then in 3D, he's like, the SpongeBob, hi, how are you? And I know a lot of people hold Gen 2 specifically very close to their heart because the style was different than any other generation that we've seen, even to this day. Gengar specifically to me looks so terrifying in Gen 2, but then all of his aura just got sapped away whenever he went to 3D. I'm serious, in almost every single case, whenever a Pokemon transitions from 2D to 3D, they end up just kind of standing there menacingly. And I think Pokemon as a concept just works so much better when it's in 2D and when it's in a sprite form. There's something about like when you make a Pokemon into a 3D model or try to make it look realistic, it either looks like it's a toy from a Happy Meal or it's something terrifying that's going to eat your firstborn child. There is a magic that comes with having a very specific type of art style, and I think that the indie game scene has always been aware of this, and even more so lately. Yeah, there's a lot of itch.io games that look like old PS1 and PS2 style graphics with the low poly models that I think a lot of people are eating up nowadays. Of course, you've got Stardew Valley when you talk about pixels and sprite work. I think about Megabonk as well, and that had a very distinct art style, ball pit, and then even the Mouse PI for Hire game that just got released. That game is insane with the art style. Like, are you seeing this right now? What is this? And I hope I'm not coming across as like a 2D purist for Pokemon. I actually really enjoyed a lot of the 3DS releases. I think Alpha Sapphire is probably my favorite 3D Pokemon game visually. I thought that, you know, it wasn't a perfect game, and even this generation of Pokemon on the 3DS does have its flaws, but there was a clear, distinct attempt at some form of an art style. And I even can extend this a little bit to like the Let's Go games. I enjoyed Let's Go Pikachu for a good chunk of it because it did feel like a Pokemon game. If you were to put up like one image of a Let's Go game and then take out all of the Pokemon, it still looks like a Pokemon game. But then if I look at something like Legends ZA, take out the Pokemon game, it just looks like a mobile game, dude. I'm surprised we didn't get more games in the Let's Go Pokemon style. Maybe it's because they turned it into like a Wii Sports game. I don't know. I'm not saying that Pokemon needs to just stop evolving with their general design philosophy, but what I am saying is that what they had going on in the older games didn't need to be abandoned like me when I was 6 years old. And the best way to revisit the past with a modern flair is, of course, HD2D. I can't tell you how jealous I am of all of the people who grew up with Dragon Quest, because I know for a fact they are eating so good right now. And this is everything that I just want for Pokemon. Is there just a world or even, you know, a fan-made game out there that could represent this or show us what's possible? This right here is Pokemon Gamma Emerald, and it's a fan-made project that has built and reestablished the Hoenn art style from the ground up in Unreal Engine. It's not a full release yet. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard of this game, and it hasn't even been updated, I believe, since like May of 2025. But regardless, I'm going to be using this as like the main example to show just how great we could have it. All right, can I move now? Ooh. Wow. Is it weird to be romantically interested in pixels? Oh, it looks so sick. Whoa, this menu's so cool. Yo, check this out. This is crazy. Put away my 2 Psyducks. It's supposed to be set in the Hoenn style with Hoenn level Pokemon, kind of resembling Pokemon Emerald, of course, but I can't help but think about Gen 5 and Unova with all of, you know, the windmills and the 3D models that we did get in that game. I remember the camera work was also so heavily focused on your main character running around the maps. I get the same vibe in this game, but everything has obviously been brought into the modern day, which is what I'm asking for. As a standalone game, Gamma Emerald was pretty fun, but it definitely caught me by surprise with some of the difficulty spikes as a casual player. I'm going for the water gun again. If I die, that's fine. If I die, that's fine. Okay, we're gonna revive Lotad. Lotad is literally almost... How is Pikachu not full? I thought I healed him up. All right, what's the player? We're going Psyduck, swap. Dude, I'm gonna crash out myself. All right. What can I use to revive? It doesn't affect him. And it is still just a demo, so you can expect to have a bunch of weird bugs and like camera movements. And for whatever reason, every time Lava Plume was used, my entire computer would just EXE explode. What is happening? What? What? Did it? It got rid of my... I don't even have the Pokemon that I caught? I'm level 6 Trico? It is more of a concept than an actual product, but it's all the proof I need to confirm my suspicions. HD2D is the only logical way forward. Dude, I showed up to my doctor appointment today for them to like probe my butthole. They were supposed to like go into my ass. But they never did. Because today's not even the appointment. I freaking showed up and it's tomorrow. And I know a lot of people actually don't like Generation 5 Pokemon and the sprite work because when it's animated, it gets very pixelated and looks just kind of off with your eyes when you see them move up and down. It's very jagged and jarring sometimes to see these animations, and I noticed that Gamma Emerald also had this problem when the Pokemon were moving around. And I'm no game dev, but I can imagine how much of a struggle it might be to make a 2D game feel expansive and as large as, you know, maybe a more modern art style. It could get tricky. I mean, even down to the movement in Gamma Emerald, it was all grid based, so when you move around, you move, you know, tile by tile, just like the older Pokemon games. But I would hope that if we get a newer HD2D release of Pokemon, it's completely unlocked from this, and it's a full 360 movement with your main character as you navigate the world, just like those Dragon Quest HD remasters were. It's clearly not as simple as just throwing in some god tier lighting and then calling it a day. You've also got to adapt in almost every other aspect of the game. But man, I can't lie, I'm judging this book by the cover, and if the cover is HD2D, I'm hyped. If I'm being realistic, I don't think Pokemon would ever make a mainline game in the HD2D format. If we're lucky, like very lucky, we'll get a spin-off or possibly a remake in this style. And you know, that's okay, because if there's anything to gather from this video, it's just that having a concept or visual identity is really what matters. The Switch era games feel lifeless to me because I don't even know what it is, bro. Like, it's the most nothing burger that I've ever seen. It doesn't even feel like it has a style. I don't know what I'm looking at, man. And I like some of these games because they were fun, and I can only imagine if they put any amount of detail into the visual identity, how much better it could have been. On this channel, while I'm writing these videos, I keep finding myself uncovering the same theme over and over again, and it's the fact that limitations breed creativity. There's the quote from the Chrono Trigger composer where he stated that on hardware today, there are more ways than before for a song to be good or bad, and for the faults or strengths of the composer to emerge. And I think that this applies to all art styles and all areas of creativity. We have the hardware and all this technology that's exposing so many of our mistakes that it's either crippling a lot of us from even creating something or exposing our laziness in a way. SNES music was amazing because they only had 64 kilobytes of RAM to work with, and Gen 5 is incredible because they only had 96 by 96 pixels to paint with. And in a world where we can have our groceries hand delivered to us, I realize that it's the limitations that matter the most. It's the limitations that differentiate a soulless design from one with personality.
Violent, that's what we show, not private. Better keep to yourself, stay silent. If it come to the wealth, get violent. Start riots, violent. This why my money, my outlet. Only show my colors on outfit. I will put my life for the outfit. This